The desert sun beat down mercilessly on the Texas plains as Samuel Cole guided his horse through the canyon. At 7 feet tall and built like an oak tree, Samuel was a man people noticed, feared even, though he'd never sought that reputation. He'd spent 5 years drifting from town to town, working ranches, keeping to himself, trying to outrun the memory of the war that had taken everything from him, including his faith in humanity. The scream pierced the afternoon stillness like a knife. Samuel's head snapped toward the sound, his instincts taking over before his mind could question. Through the mesquite brush, he spotted them. 3 men surrounding a young woman whose buckskin dress marked her as Comanche. She fought like a wildcat, but they had her cornered against the rocks, their laughter cruel and predatory. Samuel didn't think. He spurred his horse forward, his massive frame bearing down on them like an avalanche. The first man went down with a single blow. The second reached for his gun but found himself lifted off the ground by his collar, Samuel's enormous hand gripping him like a child's toy. The third man ran, and Samuel let him go, more concerned with the terrified young woman pressed against the canyon wall. She couldn't have been more than 17, with eyes that held both fear and defiance. Samuel raised his hand slowly, stepping back to show he meant no harm. She spoke rapidly in Comanche, words he didn't understand, but her meaning was clear when she pointed deeper into the canyon. Someone else needed help. He followed her to where a horse lay with a broken leg, its saddle richly decorated with intricate beadwork. The girl's eyes filled with tears as she knelt beside the animal. Samuel understood then this wasn't just any horse. He did what needed to be done, quickly and mercifully, while she sang softly to the creature. When it was over, she looked at him with something that might have been gratitude, though grief shadowed her face. Samuel gestured to his own horse, offering to take her home. She hesitated only a moment before accepting. As they rode, he learned her name through gestures and broken Spanish, Dakota, which she made him understand meant friend to all. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd become a friend to no one. The Comanche village appeared as the sun began its descent, a collection of tipis nestled in a protected valley. Warriors emerged immediately, arrows knocked, but Dakota called out to them. An older man stepped forward, his bearing unmistakably that of a leader. When Dakota ran to him, throwing her arms around him, Samuel understood. This was her father, the chief. Through Dakota's animated gestures and the few Spanish words they shared, the story emerged. The chief, whose name Samuel learned was Naco, studied him with eyes that seemed to see straight through to his battered soul. Then, unexpectedly, Naco placed his hand over his heart and bowed his head. Samuel, unsure what else to do, returned the gesture. As Samuel turned to leave, Naco called out. Through Dakota's translation, he invited Samuel to return the next day. Samuel nodded, though he had no intention of doing so. These people owed him nothing, and he had learned long ago that connections only led to pain. But that night, alone by his campfire, Samuel couldn't stop thinking about Dakota's eyes, the way fear had transformed into trust. The way her father had looked at him, not with suspicion but with recognition, as if seeing something in Samuel that Samuel himself had forgotten existed. When dawn broke, Samuel found himself riding back to the valley, unable to explain why. Naco greeted him as if he'd expected nothing less. The chief led Samuel to the center of the village where the entire tribe had gathered. Samuel's hand instinctively moved toward his gun, old instincts flaring, but Dakota smiled at him and he forced himself to relax. What happened next would stay with Samuel for the rest of his life. Naco spoke in Comanche, his voice carrying across the assembled people. Then Dakota approached, carrying something wrapped in soft leather. She unfolded it to reveal the most beautiful vest Samuel had ever seen, covered in intricate beadwork that must have taken months to create. But that wasn't all. Naco placed a hand on Samuel's shoulder and spoke again, and this time Samuel understood the Spanish words woven through the Comanche: brother, family, home, tears. Samuel hadn't shed in 5 years suddenly burned in his eyes. Naco was offering him something he'd thought lost forever, a place to belong. The chief explained through Dakota that the vest had been made for Naco's son, who had died 3 winters ago. He had been waiting for the right person to give it to, someone worthy of the honor it represented. Samuel looked around at the faces watching him, seeing not suspicion but acceptance. Dakota took his massive hand in both of hers and said in careful English, "You saved me." Now we save you." In that moment, Samuel Cole understood that redemption doesn't always come from running away from pain. Sometimes it comes from running toward the very thing you fear most: connection. He had saved a chief's daughter, but she and her father had given him something far more valuable. They'd given him back his humanity, his purpose, and a reason to believe that even broken things can be made whole again. Samuel knelt before the chief and accepted the vest, accepting with it the gift of belonging, and finally he was home.